Thank you for joining us, Oluwafemi.
Thank you for having me.
So this, I mean, what was the point in this protest? Seeing that this is just the second day of plenary for the Senate, couldn't they have been given a few more days to, maybe till like next week? Why protest now?
So I think it's a question of time and the timing. The counterpart, I mean, the House of Rep, who is the counterpart of the Nigerian Senate, the Green Chamber had considered this bill clause by clause in December before they went on break. But however, as it stands now, the Senate has not done that. And today, from the proceedings of the House, I mean the other paper, it was also said that this was stepped down. And it's because we are raising against time. 2027 is here. The current Electoral Act 2022 says notice of election should be given at least 365 days before the elections. And every one of us know that 2027 election or presidential election would be in February. But the point still remains the fact that we've seen instances where, you know, the Electoral Amendment Bill were declined, assent were declined by, you know, former presidents in the country. And we don't want that to happen because there are some important, amendments that we consider that are very important to the credibility of the electoral process come 2027. And if we delay it further, then it means that it will be impossible to achieve all of this or to have all of this before the 2027 general elections. And that is why we're saying that the Senate need to consider the bill now. And we've been having this, you know, this engagement, press releases. For some instances, we've been able to, you know, send direct letters, advocacy letters to them to say, immediately you resume, there's a need for you to consider this electoral amendment bill. But yesterday, it was not considered. Today, it was not considered. But it then means that Nigeria need to speak with action and not just, you know, mere talk.
The question will be, what's why the fear as we speak? I mean, the elections are still over a year and 3 months away. There's still enough time for this amendment to be done and passed and signed into law. But as though everybody, is it simply because the House of Representatives have done their own bit, so you think the Senate needs to hurry up and get theirs done as well so that it's once and for all?
No, that's not the point. We're not saying that the Senate need to rush without, you know, doing due diligence. No, that's not the point. But if you look at the timeline, the National Assembly had started this process immediately after the 2023 general elections. And the National Assembly had spent more than 2 years on these electoral amendment bills or Electoral Act Amendment bills. But the point still remains this: why do we have to spend this number of years when we know that the elections are closer and there are regional and international conventions that actually go against the fact that you're changing electoral laws very close to the elections? And the truth is, it also does not, you know, make any form of logic or logical sense to say you're changing electoral law closer to the elections, because it will affect planning. We also agree that INEC need a lot of time to be able to prepare for the elections. And if you're changing the electoral law, possibly maybe 3-6 months to the elections, it could affect a lot of things. And you remember, and our listeners also know, that when it comes to the challenge regarding our elections, logistics is one of the major challenge, right? INEC needs to prepare, stakeholders need to prepare, even political parties, the politicians themselves need to prepare. So if at the end of the day, we are changing some of these, you know, frameworks closer to the elections, it might be problematic. It might be difficult to be able to achieve credible elections. And that's what we're saying that. And if you look at it, the National Assembly, when the national anthem were to be, you know, amended or changed, the National Assembly did expedite this process to be able to get it done within a day. I remember that one of the most amendments that have been the fastest in the country is the amendment to the Police Act in itself. So if you look at it, why is the National Assembly spending more than 2 years on electoral amendment
maybe
views.
Oluwafemi, maybe it's because of the number of amendments or the number of issues with the Electoral Act that they need to deal with. Let's just look at a couple of them. For want of a better example, INEC's excessive discretion. They say INEC has too much discretion. Technology use, timeline interpretation, oversight is weak. Accountability is softer than it should be for such powers. Weak enforcement of campaign finance limits. So, but then some will say all of these things, it might be too much for INEC. I mean, INEC is more or less understaffed, and there's so much that INEC regulate the political parties, ensure campaign funds are properly scrutinized and regulated. That is really too much. So I understand that these are some of the things that have been looked at, but would you say that these are some of the things that the House of Representatives, in the passage of their own version of the Electoral Act, did they look at some of these things?
Yes, pretty well. I'm also very much aware of the fact that the National Assembly, especially the committees, both at the House of Rep and the Senate, on electoral matters, they have been working as a joint committee from the beginning, even from the point of submitting memoranda. I'm also, privy to the fact that the joint committee were also going across the region for, legislative interaction with people. I'm also aware that even during the public hearing, it was a joint committee that had the public hearing. So the question is, what has the House of Rep considered that it is not almost the same version with that of the Senate? That's point number one. Point number two is I'm also privy to the technical support that even Nigerians, young people, civil society organizations are giving to the National Assembly, the Joint Committee on the issues of this amendment. And I think that has also existed over time, but this particular, round of amendment, there has been so much of massive support that have been given technically to this committee. Then the question is, the committee has done its job at the committee level. They've gone for public hearings to get the input of Nigerians. They've written their committee reports. They've presented at the parliament. But what we're waiting for is the clause by clause consideration so that it goes through the final rounds of, reading in the National Assembly. Then it is cleaned up by the Business and Ethics Committee, then transmit to the president for his assent. I think it's just basically for the National Assembly, the Senate, to do the job. Because Nigerians are saying we want our electoral framework to be amended in a way that will produce credible elections. And the National Assembly is actually, or the Senate to be precise, is actually pushing back or not even communicating, to Nigerians on this matter. And that's worrisome.
All right, thank you. Oluwafemi Adebayo, as they say, when you're not speaking, you're actually still speaking. That silence doesn't mean you're not communicating, you're actually communicating. Thank you once again.
That's right.
Oluwafemi is the head research and strategy at Kimpact Development Initiative. Thank you for coming in this evening.